Hello, Internet! Halloween is now upon us, and I was not able to finish another episode of Monster Clash this year. I mean, at least the episode I did complete came out in the middle of October, instead of on Halloween Day like my Nightmare on Elm Street and Poltergeist videos, and it's definitely a lot better than my Dawn of the Dead video that came out in November and had an outtake accidentally left in. But I didn't want to leave you guys hanging, and I actually wanted to have something to go up on Halloween Day, and so I threw together this nice little epilogue for Monster Clash. Now, the prelude discussed how the series began, so for this video, I figured I'd show you the process of what goes into making a Monster Clash video, and hopefully illustrate why these videos take so long to make. Monster Clash has always been the video series where I try to push myself creatively and make something that I don't normally make in my regular reviews, which by their nature are designed to be hammered out as quickly as possible in order to garner views from prospective audiences while the films are still relevant. As such, I tried to add something a little bit extra just to give it that much more gravitas. During the first year, since I couldn't show clips from the films because of the content ID paranoia in the wake of the Viacom lawsuit, I tried dressing up in costumes, creating an animated intro, or tried opening with a little bit of comedy, as I was still in my let's try to be funny phase. The second year, where I was more serious, I tried going for a more haunting, insightful approach, which is why each of the videos that year opened with an echoey reading from one of the many paranormal books that I own. The third year, where the video was late, I went full force with visual effects, as that was what I was studying in college in addition to film production. It took me so long to finish that, as a result, the video wasn't published until November 2nd. The resulting fatigue from working on the visual effects for so long, leading to the aforementioned outtake that I forgot to take out. The following year, in a bid to avoid repeating that same mistake, I decided to try setting the mood strictly through set design. This was also where I first began wearing my Monster Clash outfit with the black suit vest and the red tie. This emphasis on set design was carried over, no pun intended, to the following year, but was abandoned for the second video due to time constraints. The compromise I set for myself was the themed round cards that matched the iconic moments of the films I was analyzing, at least that was the case with the Poltergeist analysis. On top of that, with the Carrie video, I also tried demonstrating my storyboarding skills as a means to apply what I had learned from my college and high school courses to my videos, and also show something that the other videos on my channels don't normally get to show. Since these videos are some of the most viewed on my YouTube channel, I began seeing them as an opportunity to show what I could do as a one-man operation, and as a result, they take quite a bit of time to produce. I first start by watching the two films, watching them on separate days so that I can ruminate on them individually. I also make a point to start with the remake first, so that way I can judge the remake on its own merits, instead of having my judgment skewed by what I remember from the original, as more often than not, I'm usually watching these films for the first time when I'm making these analyses. As I watch the film, I take notes of what I am seeing, whether it's plot points or ideas that I notice, or scenes or moments that either bother me while watching, or something that I feel is worth calling attention to during the video. I also take down approximate time codes so that way I can look for these moments while I'm editing the video. After I watch both films, I then write up the actual analysis. With certain films, I also conduct additional research, such as looking into the productions of the respective films, or looking into the source material if the films happen to be based on something like a novel, as well as looking up any other pertinent facts depending on the nature of the film. As I write, I mark out the segments of the analysis that are going to be strictly voiceover in red text. At the same time, I also work to capture footage from the two films, a process that has been sped up considerably thanks to software like Handbrake if the film is on DVD, and equipment like my Hauppauge Rocket, which I use if I'm capturing from Blu-ray. Once the analysis is written and the segments are marked, I record the voiceover segments using my microphone, a Zoom H2 recorder. It usually takes me a number of takes, but since it's voiceover and not on camera, I only have to re-record the parts that I flub instead of having to start over the whole segment like I would if I were actually on camera. I then take the voiceover audio and the captured movies and begin editing those segments first, as those take the longest amount of time to construct as I scrub through the films in the trimmer of my editing software to find segments that tie to the voiceover. Once those segments are completed, I then begin planning the shoot for the on-camera portions. Usually I simply set aside a day to record and then begin setting up, gathering the various items I use to dress the set, like my backdrop cloth, the candelabras, the crystal ball, various supernatural, paranormal, or religious books, and other items that I think will add to the atmosphere. I then go through the process of lighting the set and focusing the camera so that everything is framed in a way that looks interesting and presentable. Once everything is locked down, I then put on my wardrobe, which in this case is the dress shirt, suit vest, and red tie, and then put on makeup, usually just powdered makeup that you find in most compacts. This is to reduce the shininess of my face that usually comes from sweat or grease, so that way I look better on camera. Once everything is ready, I record the on-camera segments, doing as many takes as I need to in order to get segments that are done smoothly. Since I try to don a bit of a persona when talking in these videos, it sometimes takes me a while before I lock into a cadence that flows naturally. Once the segments are recorded, I then record B-roll of the set, as well as any shots I need for the visual effect I've set out to make. This would include any plate shots to be composited onto, and the elements that are to be composited into a scene. After that, I capture the footage and audio and begin putting together a rough cut of the video with the on-camera and voiceover segments put in order. I then craft the round cards and place those into the timeline. Then I layer in the visual effects. In the past, I simply used what plugins and tools were available to me in my editing software, which for the longest time was Sony Vegas 11. If a shot called for special graphics, I would whip them up in an old copy of Photoshop Elements 8 that came with my first Wacom tablet, and then import the still images into Vegas. More recently, I've upgraded to Magix Movie Studio 14, which is the current version of Vegas after Sony sold the software to another company, and I've also begun using HitFilm Standard, which was bundled into my copy of Vegas 11, to produce some of my visual effects. However, some things, like the animated logo for my channel, I still had to whip up in Photoshop Elements 8. Once the effects are created, I put in the necessary sound effects, using a library of effects I've saved from my film audio classes, as well as sounds I've recorded myself. I then place in the music, a majority of which I get from composer Kevin MacLeod, who uploads the music for free on his website incompetech.com. It's all perfectly legal because the music is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license, meaning that if you use his music, even if it's a commercial project, you simply need to be sure to credit him properly, which you should because he is an awesome human being. Once the elements are in place, I do a last check of the audio levels to make sure that none of the elements overpower each other, that the music doesn't drown out the dialogue, that the sound effects aren't distracting, and that the whole thing comes together in one smooth mix, rather than sounding like disparate pieces. After one last look to make sure everything looks right, I export the video and send it out into the world. It sounds like a lot, but that's because it is. Making a quality video takes a long time, especially if you're doing everything by yourself like I am. And the other key thing to remember is that when I first started this series, I was a college student with a lot of free time on my hands. Whereas now, I work a 9-to-5 job in order to pay my bills and not starve, so that's why I'm not able to crank out as many of these videos as I would like. But that's the process. That is how a Monster Clash video is made from start to finish. It's a process that I'm constantly evolving as I learn new techniques, as I learn and pick up new ideas, and just try to brainstorm other ways to make more and more interesting videos. So, I hope you found this little peek behind the scenes insightful. If you have any questions about my process, or questions about making videos in general, post them in the comments below, and I'll answer as many of them as I can. So on that note, I hope you all have a happy and safe Halloween. If you'll excuse me, I have my own day of frightful fancy and terrifying treats to return to. So for now, dear viewer, I bid thee good night.